The Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Levin TV on crtv.com. It's good that you're here on this Friday because there's a lot going on, and we need to cut through the nonsense. So now we have Michael Cohen, who has pled guilty in a plea bargain to 8 felonies, including 2 campaign violations. 2 of them. One of them is exceeding the limit for personal donations, and the other is participating in the use of corporate money as a donation. These relate back to the non-disclosure agreements involving 2 women. These are events that took place before the president became president, and these are payments that were made out of private funds, not campaign funds. Again, they're non-disclosure agreements. They are contracts. These are signed every day for different reasons by employees and employers all over the country in all walks of life, including by members of Congress, including in U.S. attorneys' offices, including at the United States Department of Justice, including at the DNC and the RNC and everywhere else. And so what the prosecutor has done here is quite evil. I said evil. He didn't test his interpretation of the campaign finance laws in a court of law with a judge and a jury and an aggressive defense. No. He had Lanny Davis, a lobbyist, a Clinton hack lawyer for decades, representing Michael Cohen, a fool and a moron on top of all the rest of it. And so the prosecutor saw his opportunity. That is, he would threaten Cohen with decades of imprisonment. He would dig even further into some taxi nonsense he was involved in. 5 counts of tax fraud, 1 count of lying to get a massive loan. Probably could have increased those counts. But what he got Cohen to do, with Lanny Davis's counsel on top of it, was to also plead to these 2 campaign violations. Now, what has the prosecutor done? Well, yesterday we learned he gave immunity to the man who owns America Media, Inc., which includes the National Enquirer. Now, why would he give this man immunity? Because he wants the testimony from this man, who, by the way, his name is Pecker, aptly put. He gives immunity to this guy, Pecker. And why? Because Pecker will substantiate what Cohen has to say, that Donald Trump directed the payments to these women. And Pecker will also say not only that, that there were articles that he was going to run, or at least one article, and he pulled the article, and again in exchange for a payment of money. None of that is illegal on its face. None of it is a campaign contribution, as again I will explain in a moment. Now today, we have another situation. We have a gentleman by the name of Weisselberg. Weisselberg has been the CFO of these of Trump organization. He's been granted immunity to essentially say the same thing. So nothing's tried in court. The prosecution's interpretation of the campaign finance laws is not put to the test. They're not adjudicated. And yet he has laid out this case where effectively the media and the surrogates out there can say, well, Donald Trump, he violated these campaign laws and he paid hush money. There's a big issue here. Mr. Mueller has conceded, as what I've said now for about 1.5 years, that according to the United States Department of Justice's position for almost half a century, you cannot indict a sitting president. So what has Mr. Mueller decided? Well, he said to himself, this is actually a great opportunity. Now, we can pile up all these laws that we say the President of the United States has violated. We'll put them in a report when we're done. We'll send them to the Deputy Attorney General, who will be forced to provide them to Congress and be used for impeachment purposes. I have no doubt that Mr. Mueller is coordinating with the Southern District of New York, and that those allegations or charges will somehow become part of his report. But even if they don't, they'll be out there for the grist should the Democrats win the House in November. So the prosecutors, realizing they can't actually bring charges against the President of the United States, are going to bring charges against the President of the United States but not in a court of law, in a political way. So you have these prosecutors who are highly political now, highly partisan. They think they have their target in sight, and they are just trying to build their case. You're not supposed to be using the tools of the prosecutor's office to bring impeachment or to affect politics in any way. So this is incredibly devious, it's incredibly evil. And now let's go back and take a look at this. So the National Enquirer publisher, David Pecker, is granted immunity. Here's how it's reported on CNN. Go.
Federal prosecutors granted immunity to David Pecker, the CEO of the National Enquirer and a longtime friend of the president in the Southern District of New York probe of Michael Cohen. Pecker, according to the Journal, met with prosecutors.
Now you notice, hold on a second, you notice that these so-called reporters can barely sit in their seats. They are excited, they are ecstatic, because the media in this country, even more than the Democrat Party, even though it's difficult to distinguish them, is driving this, driving the impeachment, driving the criminal investigation, trying to drive the president out of office. So much for your free press. So this is really being driven by the press and these so-called reporters and surrogates and commentators, particularly on CNN and MSNBC, particularly in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and the big networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS. It's absolutely incredible what's going on. Go.
Cohen's involvement in hush money deals he brokered ahead of the 2016 election. A real pivotal figure here in what happened. He basically was in charge of this whole catch and release scheme where there would be stories about allegations involving Trump and women.
Whoa. Catch and release scheme. What is she even? Catch and release scheme. What are they even talking about? By the way, I thought they liked catch and release, at least when it comes to illegal aliens on the border. But go ahead.
Would purchase the stories and essentially bury them. Where does this take us? What do you make of this latest news?
I mean, you've got now another witness who we assume or we think may very well possibly corroborate what Michael Cohen told prosecutors. It's problematic. I keep going back, though, to this idea that I think what it really reveals is almost a political crime, rather than, that's maybe more important. You have a lot of people at this time, at the end of the 2016 election cycle.
The Weekly Standard, which is loaded with never-Trumpers, that's what you've got. So they use these guys like this Michael Warren on CNN and MSNBC or Meet the Press or the Today Show or whatever it is, because they can at least say, oh, these are Republicans, these are conservatives, and so forth. The Weekly Standard, almost to a man there and a woman, they hate Donald Trump. The founder of the Weekly Standard, Bill Kristol, is crazy, nuts over his hatred for Donald Trump. This guy has no sense, the senior writer at the Weekly Standard, for what's taking place here. Again, I will explain the law in a moment. Go.
Hollywood video comes out. A lot of Republicans are bailing. Had these stories come out that Cohen now alleges Trump was involved in trying to shut down, that changes a whole lot of things, and a lot of Republicans sort of ended up staying on Team Trump because these stories did not come out.
Okay, let us walk through this again before we get to Mr. Weissenberg. Again, a candidate is free to spend his or her own money or their corporate money to resolve negative issues before or during the campaign. I gave this example before. Let's say you decide to run for president of the United States, and you've got this active litigation going on, and it's very messy. It's very messy litigation. And then you decide it's going to hurt my campaign, and I want to have a positive message for my campaign. So you direct your lawyer who's litigating the case, let's settle the case, pay them $112,000 or pay them $1.4 million, whatever it is, settle it, I want to be done with it. Now, according to the Southern District of New York, that is a campaign contribution. Well, what's campaign contribution? It's money spent to make the candidate look good, to influence the election. Well, how can that be a campaign contribution? I'm not using campaign funds. This is a matter that occurred before the campaign. It doesn't directly affect the campaign. In other words, we're not buying posters and stickers and commercial time, and I'm not, dealing with any of that. This is something that occurred before the campaign, And of course I want to create a positive image of myself. How can that be a felony? It's not a felony. It's never been a felony. Can you name one other individual in the country who's been convicted of that? Just name one. I can't think of a single one. So a non-disclosure agreement is no different. Settle that allegation that's being made by Stormy Daniels. Mr. Cohen, pay her the money. I'll reimburse you. Okay, fine, boss. Now the president says he didn't even direct him to do it. I'm saying let's pretend he did. There's still no problem. Still no problem. So the prosecutor says, you know what, the great thing about this is the Department of Justice has confirmed that we can't prosecute a sitting president. Therefore, we'll run up the charges. And we'll create the impression that he's committed crimes. And there's not a damn thing he can do about it, because it'll never be adjudicated in a court of law. Can you imagine that? So we get Cohen. We load up these tax charges and loan charges. Oh, and by the way, Michael and Lanny, these two these charges, you have to plead to them too. Okay. And we'll only give you 3 to 5 years as opposed to 25 to 30. You got it. You got it. Wow, look at that. Cohen, he's pleaded to 2 campaign felonies. And if he's pleaded to those, as Lanny Davis and others say, that means Trump's guilty too. Must be an unindicted co-conspirator. Did somebody say he's an unindicted co-conspirator? No. Doesn't matter. Truth be damned. We're the free press. And so, hey, unindicted co-conspirator is this clown from the Weekly Standards. It's starting to pile up. We're getting all kinds of, well, they're piling up. The prosecutor's piling. Now we get the National Enquirer guy. Given immunity. Immunity from what? He doesn't want to go broke. He doesn't want to serve time. The prosecutors say, look, pal, we know what you did. We know money was spent to make sure that you would buy her article and then kill it. We consider that a campaign contribution. We won't charge you with anything. You won't have to pay for lawyers and litigation and all the rest if you confirm that that's what you did and that Cohen agrees and it's a campaign violation. All right? You got it. Wow! Now we have the guy that runs the National Enquirer. Well, we're not done. We have this fellow. It's by the name of Weaselberg. Excuse me, Weisselberg, but you get the point. We'll call him Weaselberg because that's what he is. This from CNBC. Alan Weaselberg, longtime chief financial officer of the Trump Organization, has been granted immunity by federal prosecutors as part of their investigation into President Donald Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, NBC News is reporting. News of Weisselberg's immunity deal follows a Thursday report that David Pecker, the chairman of the publishing giant American Media, had received federal immunity as part of the Cohen investigation. The deal will escalate pressure on the president, who was implicated in a number of crimes that Cohen pleaded guilty to on Tuesday in Manhattan federal court. President's implicated in crimes? What crimes? Oh, those campaign crimes. Cohen pled, so they must be what the prosecutor says. Now we have these other 2 guys that say, yeah, Cohen's right. Pecker shared information about the payments with prosecutors in exchange for immunity, including details about the president's knowledge of the payments. Weisselberg's ties to the president go back decades. He has overseen the Trump Organization's finances, been involved in the Trump Foundation, the president's charity, and has managed Trump's private trust alongside his eldest sons Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. He was reportedly subpoenaed by prosecutors earlier this year to testify before a grand jury as part of that inquiry. They scare the hell out of these guys. You've ever gotten a subpoena to appear before a grand jury and your freedom is on the line, your life's on the line, everything you own's on the line, and they grant them immunity? Just say what we need you to say. Here's the record. It shows that you knew this and you knew that. We believe this is a crime. You agree with that, Mr. Pecker? I hope. Yes. How about you, Weaselberg? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Payments made to McDougal, this Karen McDougal, the Playboy model, and another woman, porn star Stormy Daniels, formed the foundation of campaign finance charges lodged against Cohen. Both women alleged they had sex with Trump years earlier, and they were paid in exchange for their silence. The White House has denied Trump had affairs with the women. I'm saying let's pretend he did. And it occurred in advance of him running for president. And he makes these payments before he becomes president. whether he directs them to be made, whether he reimburses them, whether they're out of his pocket, whether they're out of his corporation, and so forth and so on. Again, what the prosecution is saying, wow, that's during a campaign and you wanted to influence the outcome of a campaign. You're allowed to influence the outcome of a campaign. Everything's not reportable and everything's not illegal. I can give you 1,000 examples, which is why these cases are almost never brought. Almost never brought. Where would the line be drawn? Okay, I paid money, what? Settle this case, I paid money, I wanted to settle with my vendors because that was a whole issue. I had a battle with the unions. Okay, I signed a union contract because I don't want any trouble during the election. To influence the outcome of an election, you're allowed to affect the influence the outcome of an election if you do it legally. And this is done legally. This is really quite appalling to me. So, this is Weisselberg. Now, watch CNN. They ask Americans about Michael Cohen, Paul Manafort, because they want to see this outrage, you know. But it doesn't go as they expected. Let's check this out. Go ahead.
Lucerne County in northeast Pennsylvania is one of those industrial communities that's fallen on tough times over the years. To political observers, it is also known as a place that supported Barack Obama twice and then flipped to Donald Trump in 2016.
Ken, how did it go today?
In the aftermath of the legal bombshells involving Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, and campaign chairman Paul Manafort, here in Lucerne, voters like Anne-Marie Lenahan, a registered Democrat who voted for Trump, is so encouraged by the economy, she says she can overlook allegations of Trump's infidelity.
Unless the money came from campaign funds.
Whoa, stop. Now they're asking about Trump's infidelity. I thought they were talking about his so-called campaign violations. Go ahead.
Then I don't think that it's good.
I see. So that's where you draw that sort of line.
Yes.
I see.
But I would still vote for him again.
Trump's win in this part of the state is also thanks in part to Democrats like Eileen and Richard Sorokas.
This is all from Obama's campaign.
After voting twice for President Obama, switched their vote to Trump. Here's what the couple told CNN weeks after Trump's inauguration.
You gotta get the politically correct things out of here and get a businessman, get this country straight out, get the deficit down.
The couple stands by their decision.
Our retirement is in the stock market, and the stock market's been growing for quite a while now, so I'm sort of happy what's happening with the economy.
The Sorokas say the legal crises involving Cohen and Manafort as a sideshow, and many others here agree.
The investigations were supposed to be about Russia interference in our elections, and so far I've seen nothing concerning that.
As a candidate, Trump infamously joked about the dedication of his supporters.
The polls, they say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Loyalty only goes so far, and supporters here say it could be tested if Trump began issuing pardons.
Ooh. The pardons, I don't agree with them.
Barbershop owner Aldo Satorio is an independent voter who supported Trump.
If pardons started coming down, would that change your minds about voting for him?
That's going to be in my decision. That would be in a decision, sure.
Also mine.
The president better watch about the pardons, because with the pardons that he does that, it looks like it was set up by him with the last couple of tweets that he had, where he sticks up for, who is it, the guy out there talking about Manafort. He says he's a great guy and he's wonderful and everything else, and he's kind of sending a message that if you stick with me, I will pardon you.
And Poppy, in addition to the pardons, the other line in the sand for many of the Trump supporters that we spoke to would be if the Mueller investigation found any collusion between members of the Trump campaign and Russians. Again, that would be another line in the sand for many of the folks we spoke to here. But they also...
You know, that's enough of this guy. You know what's interesting about all this to me is how it's all one way. Well, what if he pardons? And what if he does this? And what if he does that? How about a couple other serious questions? Do you think a prosecutor should be able to interfere politically and use the powers of a prosecutor to try and have the president impeached and removed from office? I think they would unanimously say no. And so it's the way the questions are posed also, and the way that they're asked. And the failure of our so-called free press to get this right is not, I think, a matter of ignorance. I think it's a matter of intent. And so this is why I've been spending so much time on Levin TV, on radio, on Fox, wherever I can, to make the point what the truth is about all of this. Now, our buddies at MRC, well, they noted something very interesting, although expected. CNN and MSNBC say impeachment 222 times in one day. Let's check that out. Go.
The President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, is named a co-conspirator of a federal crime. Is that grounds for impeachment?
Do you think impeachment is more likely at this point? Impeachment. Does this move the needle at all?
More confidence to move forward on impeachment.
The president facing impeachment.
Impeachment will be on the Democrats' agenda.
The I word, impeachment.
The I word, impeachment.
The I word, impeachment.
The I word.
The I word, and impeachment.
Let's take a look at the process of impeachment. Impeachment, 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 to impeach or impeachment, impeachment, he would have been impeached. All of it bringing impeachment back to the forefront, talking about impeachment.
Impeachment talk.
Impeachment is a more viable option.
Do you think it would be appropriate to immediately begin impeachment proceedings?
Impeachment.
Impeachment.
Impeachable. Impeachment. 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 Impeachment.
Impeachment. Impeachment. Impeachment.
Impeachment.
Think they're pushing an agenda? The I word. Idiots. That's the I word, as far as I'm concerned. Now, there's an interesting piece in National Review by a very smart gentleman by the name of Kyle Smith. He used to write, I believe, for the New York Post as well. He says impeachment's not going to happen. He says it just would make political sense for Democrats for impeachment. The base of the Democratic Party may be hungering for the impeachment of Donald Trump, but should Democrats retake the House in November, they won't oblige, because it wouldn't make political sense. That caught my attention. I said, why? Some of my National Review colleagues, including the boss, Rich Lowry, think that impeachment is probable, assuming the Democrats win the House in November. But, exciting as this week's revelations have been, more bombshells, the Democrats are all but certain that anyone they nominate in 2020 will be able to beat Trump. The last thing they want is to put any wind in Trump's sails, and impeachment would likely do that. This is Kyle Smith. Besides, they have a much more enticing option than impeachment. They can use control of the House to launch an endless series of hearings and investigations. Armed with subpoena power, they will be able to create daily headlines making Trump and the Republican Party look bad, with innumerable opportunities to get themselves in the news and grandstand. In response, Trump will surely go bonkers and say and do all kinds of erratic and inappropriate things. I don't agree with that, but that's typical, unfortunately, of National Review. But anyway, his main point is very interesting. That bump up the probability of his defeat in 2020. Impeachment, by contrast, would hand Trump fresh means with which to mock the Democrats for failing to oust him. Now, some of this to me rings very, very true. And that is, he's saying the Democrats will want to severely damage Trump. Severely damage Trump. Have this dirt of criminality and wrongdoing and wrong corruption swirling around him, and then they'll want to run in 2020, he says, to ensure their victory. I think there's some truth to that, but then I think, well, if they impeach him and he succeeds in the Senate and he runs for re-election, they're going to say they're running against an impeached president, even though he wasn't convicted. And that is an odd thing, but it is a powerful argument to their base, to turn their base out. And some of these independents who are on the line, not sure what exactly they will do. So my view is you fight them every step of the way. You fight them like it's a military operation. You make them fight for every damn inch. And while you're at it, you try and take every damn inch from them. Oh, and there's one other thing that this article doesn't talk about, and many articles at National Review, the Weekly Standard, and other places. Sometimes things are done because they're right. These people need to be fought because it's the right thing to do. We are defending not just the President of the United States. We are defending the office of the President. We are defending the Constitution of the United States. We are defending the franchise. All of you and I who voted in the last election for this president. We are fighting an effort, what I call a silent coup that's been picked up by others in the media, because that's exactly what it is. The day after the election, I made the point on radio, these people will seek to impeach Trump or create a criminal scenario where they feel they can push him out of office. They've done it, and they've never stopped. They tried to take out Trump even before he was elected. We now know that with all the tawdry, incredible, outrageous activity that took place at the senior levels of the FBI, senior levels of our intelligence agencies, putting a spy in the opposition's campaign, unmasking individuals in that campaign, including General Flynn, all the tawdry activity that took place. Sometimes you just got to fight because it's the right thing to do. And the Republic matters, and the future for our children matters. It isn't just about the never-Trumpers who don't like Trump. It's not just about these clowns in the media who are pushing for his impeachment. It's not just about the Democrats regaining power so they can nationalize more things and control more things. It's about our liberty too. And that's why we fight. And these conservatives who say to me and others that we are sellouts, hardly. We stand firm and we fight. It is they who are the sellouts, because they want to be patted on the head by the New York Times and the Washington Post. They want friendly articles, happy articles written about them. They want to appear on CNN like the clown from the Weekly Standard and all the rest. That's what they're all about. I'm not about any of that. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll keep reporting on it accurately and giving my opinion on it, which is accurate. Robert Reich, remember him? Little fellow. Used to be the Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton. Well, he's quite the left-wing hack. And he puts out these videos, which we watch from time to time, and I saw one, and I said to the crew, let's play this. Not just for the fun of it, but to hold him up as a foil, because I can't get him on my show on Life, Liberty, and Levin. He says he's exclusive to CNN. But you can't get a waiver from CNN to demonstrate how brilliant you are on Fox on my Sunday show? Apparently he can't. Apparently we have a long line of leftists who can, including the 28-year-old who got elected with 17,000 votes in New York City, including Bernie Sanders. He won't come on, including Elizabeth Warren. These people are everywhere, but they won't be with me. And I can go down the list. So that's the way it is. So let's take a look at Robert Reich and what he has to say about the media. This is really quite interesting, how the left's mind works or doesn't work. Go.
How in the world should the free press cover Donald Trump? Here are 9 suggestions. Number 1, stop treating Trump's tweets as news. 2, don't believe a single word that comes out of his mouth. 3, don't fall for the reality TV spectacles he creates. For example, his meeting with Kim Jong-un. They're not news either. Number 4, don't let his churlish, thin-skinned, vindictive, narcissistic rants divert attention from what he's really doing. Number 5, focus on what he's really doing and put the day's stories into this larger context. He's undermining democratic institutions, using his office for personal gain, sowing division and hate.
So in other words, and I don't know what Reich is whining about. They're doing all these things, pretty much, or twisting what he does. It's funny that he uses Comey here, who was a liar, a leaker, and was fired at the request, among other things, of the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. But all that said, what Robert Reich is saying is, look, I'm a left-wing radical progressive. I'm a political Democrat hack. And so media, do what I want you to do. Media, don't report the news. Keep spinning, keep surmising, keep aggressively reporting news as opinion. That's pretty much what he's saying. Because his hate for Trump knows no limits. Go ahead.
Cozying up to dictators while antagonizing our democratic allies around the world. Violating.
I thought Obama recognized the dictators in Cuba. Am I missing something? Didn't he put an embassy there? Didn't he put an embassy there? Yeah. Wasn't he cozying up to dictators? Yeah, I think he was. Or when he was whispering to the Putin stooge, the president of Russia, before the election, wasn't he cozying up to dictators? Tell me, $150 billion to the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran, isn't that cozying up to dictators? I think it is cozying up to dictators. And I could go on and on and on. Go ahead.
The rule of law and enriching America's wealthy while harming the middle class and the poor. He may also be colluding with Putin.
Harming the middle class and the poor, lowest unemployment rate in God knows how long, particularly among minorities, blacks, Latinos, among women, and of course white people. May I say that? This is just BS. Go ahead.
Stop reporting about the Republican Party and start reporting on Fox News, which is both Trump's propaganda tool and his...
So stop reporting on the Republican Party, report what I say on Donald Trump, and go after Fox News. You talk about a fascistic ideology. You're listening to it right now. Go ahead.
Focus group for how to build power by dividing America with lies and hate. There's no Republican Party anymore, only Trump and Fox News. 7. Keep track of what his cabinet is doing. Sessions attacks on civil rights, civil liberties, voting rights, and immigrants. DeVos's efforts to undermine...
yes, it's so horrible under Sessions. We don't even know he's around, quite frankly. Attacking minorities and immigrants and voting rights? How? How is he doing that exactly? Trying to enforce immigration laws? Trying to ensure voting laws? Enforce those as well? Go ahead.
Public education, and Zinke's efforts to gut the environment, all their conflicts of interest, and the industry...
So, in other words, report on the fact that we have a new administration that's introducing competition, private sector initiatives, embracing private property rights, capitalism, that are doing things differently than Clinton did or Obama does. That's what you need to hammer. Or that there is this little Fox News compared to all the rest of the media that doesn't step in line with MSNBC and CNN and the New York Times, and it's out there all by itself. You gotta crush them too. Go ahead.
With lobbyists they put in high positions. 8. Don't let Trump use your journalistic goal of balanced reporting against you. Giving equal time to the truth and to lies from Trump's enablers or followers isn't balance. This isn't a contest between right and left.
I don't know. That MSNBC and CNN, they sure do give equal time to Trump supporters, don't they, and conservatives? No, they don't. But he doesn't believe in balanced reporting anyway. Just one way. He would be great on Russia TV. He really would. We do have what he wants. It's called Russia TV, Pravda, those type of outputs. That is state-run media. Go ahead.
Republicans and Democrats, this is between democracy and demagogic authoritarianism. Finally, don't let him rattle you. Maintain your dignity, confidence, and courage. Our democracy...
Do they seem rattled? Do they seem rattled? That Don Lemon, does he seem rattled? No, he seems like an idiot. Does Maddow seem rattled? No, just another idiot. Don't let him rattle you and your self-confidence. Like, Jim Acosta, that poor guy's self-confidence has been undermined. But I wanted you to hear this guy, because if he had his way, there would be no free press. It would be dead. It would be the voice of the same type of left-wing ideology, which is what he's pushing. I mean, think about this. Think about what he's saying. Meanwhile, part of the problem we have in this country is people talk about the Constitution and defending the Constitution, and they have no idea what it means. Campus Reform, which is an outstanding organization, one of their people, they went out and they asked millennials to try to explain the First Amendment. The First Amendment. Didn't go very well. Let's check it out. Go ahead.
I'm Calvin Phillips of Campus Reform. Today we're at Columbia University talking to young people about freedom of speech. Is the First Amendment...
Columbia University, Ivy League. It's hard to get in there. Extremely left-wing. Go.
It's still relevant today, and do people actually know what's in the First Amendment? Let's find out. In the First Amendment of the Constitution, there are 5 freedoms listed that are protected in the First Amendment. I've got $20 right here if you can name all 5.
No way I'm naming all 5.
Any come to mind, freedoms under the First Amendment?
No, I have no idea.
Can you name the 5 freedoms protected under the First Amendment?
No, I definitely can't.
I can't. Yeah, any?
We can guess.
How long do I have?
You took comma. You should really do this.
So freedom of speech, freedom of the press.
You're the constitutional lawyer here, man. You got this. Come on.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, dude, he's taking class in law school right now. Also, so dude.
Oh, stop. He's taking a class in law school? You know, when I was in law school, and we discussed this on Life, Liberty, and Levin, we never read the Constitution. We would take little chunks. Professors would then take them and show us Supreme Court precedent, push, you know, their ideological agenda. We never read the Constitution. So these guys have no idea. Freedom of religion, free speech, freedom of the press, freedom of association, and freedom not to be part of an established religion. 5. Go.
Freedom of the press.
Free speech. Right to bear arms. Is that a different amendment? I think that's a different amendment.
Second Amendment.
Yeah, there you go. Now I feel like I need to go home and just read.
The right to a jury by your peers.
No.
Then I'm done. Freedom of the press. Freedom of.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
It involves what we're doing right now. All of us assembled. Freedom of assembly?
Oh, freedom of assembly. Oh, like to do like protests and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion. It's a really good. I don't know.
Okay, so we got to 3. That's the most anyone's gotten. Freedom of. You're tied for the most so far. No one has been able to get more than 3.
Freedom of speech, press, religion.
We're on a college campus. That's one of the main places people are discussing what ideas should and shouldn't be allowed. Where do you think the line is on when something should no longer be protected by the First Amendment?
I think the lines are strong when you get offensive trying to in people's like cultural identity and what they identify as.
I don't think that it's fair for people to use the First Amendment as kind of like, you know, an excuse to say whatever they want. That's very hurtful and malicious to others. So
Isn't the Constitution the excuse, though?
it really is. Now that you think, like, now that I'm saying it out loud.
So I think the line should be if you're intolerant of other groups in a way that makes their opinion seem like less, that's defeating the whole purpose.
Who gets to decide what is intolerant, though?
Who gets to decide? It's a pretty arbitrary line, but I think it's less arbitrary to say if you're deeming a group less equal.
The defining characteristic is respect and safety. So if someone's promoting an ideology that there needs to be a threshold.
Who gets to decide where that threshold is?
Well, academic communities basically. If you start to like offend someone, you should stop talking.
But who gets to decide what the line is between too offensive and not offensive enough?
I feel like that's just something you kind of gotta judge by yourself.
As long as like you're not like disrespecting anyone or making them like feel threatened or uncomfortable with their own like way of living or identifying themselves in society. I think that's...
Doesn't the Constitution protect my right, though, to make you feel uncomfortable with my words?
Up to a point. Like, it depends how uncomfortable you're saying, because the Constitution should also, like, assure, like, safety and...
I don't have the right to hurt people, so...
You do, though.
Yeah, I guess. This is all very tricky. Yeah, you do.
Because obviously we know that the Constitution is, I consider it a living organism, so with time it should be evolving and stuff like that.
Don't send your kids to Columbia. Count yourself among the lucky if they're rejected. I consider it a living organism. Like bacteria? Of course he considers it a living organism because he's been taught well by the Marxist tenured professors who pick up where Woodrow Wilson left off. This whole living and breathing Constitution is something he promoted really back in the 1870s when he was a quote-unquote scholar. And he was one of the leaders, one of the intellectual leaders of the progressive movement, which was imported into the United States from Germany, which is an offshoot of Hegelism, Rousseauism, and yes, Marxism, where the individual can only be fulfilled. The individual can only be self-realized through the state. So what does that mean? Well, what has it meant? Communism, fascism, and all the rest. What's it meant for the individual? These people are fools, and part of the reason they're fools is because they've been taught to be fools. You would hope, you would think that you're on a college campus to expand your thinking, right? To expand your education. But that's not what's happening. It's indoctrination. They don't know what the First Amendment says because they haven't been taught the First Amendment. They're in Columbia. They've gone through elementary school, middle school, high school, part of college. They've gotten straight A's. They're big SAT grades. I mean, they get into Columbia. They get into Columbia. I mean, assuming it's not all diversity based. They get in Columbia, and they don't even know what the First Amendment says. They know the Constitution's a problem. They know it's living and breathing. They know it has to keep up with modern times, but they don't know what's in it. And they don't know why the Constitution is written the way it is. All they know is the guys who wrote it are all a bunch of white, privileged slave owners. So it's really completely out of whack. And the country's gone broke subsidizing these student loans and all the rest of it. Over $1 trillion in outstanding student loans. What's it getting us? It's getting us a whole generation of individuals. And there are many exceptions. The problem is this is the rule. It's getting us a whole bunch of people who do not love their country. I mean, what kind of society can survive when we're actually educating people to hate the history of their own country and the principles of their own country? And I circle back. What kind of society do we have when the media essentially speaks with one voice? And that voice is, unless you're Obama, unless you're a leftist, unless you're going to push this big centralized government agenda, you are to be destroyed. And that's what they're trying to do to Donald Trump. You may not agree with every single thing Donald Trump has done, but that's not what we're fighting. We're fighting for a republic, our Constitution, the rule of law. We're fighting against the tyranny of these prosecutors, the tyranny of the aggregate media, and the tyranny of a Democrat Party that wants to fundamentally transform America. That's it.